Hi, just a few questions today. Yes, I'm hoping the wind will increase just a little, because otherwise I'm going to have flies and things buzzing around my ears and eyes. Anywhere's okay, but ears and eyes is a little distracting. So first question, which is carrying on from Dan's two questions, excuse me, Dan W. And I forgot to go back to his second question last time, which was, do you use bark of the jackfruit tree for the dye? Ah yes, Dan, so you're referring to the dyeing and cleaning solution we boil up in the video from the day before the last Uposita. And we use the heartwood, the wood from this jackfruit tree. Jackfruit is a very tasty, very delicious fruit that I particularly like. It is something I have daily here. It kind of looks like a mini yellow bell pepper, but it's thicker, very tasty, and doesn't really compare to any other fruit, I suppose, in flavour like a mango. But it comes from this large green object which grows on the jackfruit tree that they open up, and there's all these little things inside. So that's the jackfruit, which is a very common fruit in these parts of the world. Then the tree itself, they use the fallen off branches and parts have concentric rings, and the heartwood, which is an analogy the Buddha used often, getting to the heartwood, which is the most seasoned of all woods, is where one would get the darkest dye colour from. It's almost brown, and then the slightly lighter colour, which is this colour, is, as the Buddha described, the colour of dung water, comes from moving out from the centre of the heartwood, the next area, rings around if you like, and then moving out further is the lighter wood, which is the more orangey, lighter coloured robes. So here in Thailand, all monks' robes are dyed with the wood solution from the jackfruit tree. The more orangey for the city monks comes from the outer wood, and the darker forest monks, the inner wood. So not the bark, no, the actual wood. And it's boiled up for a day before in this water, and creates a solution which is both a dye, a cleaning agent, and an antiseptic, antibiotic solution, which stops the robes getting smelly in this damp and humid air, especially in the monsoon season when they don't get the opportunity to dry properly. But jackfruit itself with some sticky rice is very aroi, which is Thai for delicious, and I enjoy it very much. Sweet sticky rice and jackfruit, or sweet sticky rice and mango, has to be one of my favourite things here. Moving on, the next question is from, yes, I can't translate your name because it's too faint for Google Translate, but the little ball logo says everything's going to be okay, which I like very much. Everything is going to be okay, everything's going to be all right. That's a song. And your question is, are you happy? Yes, thank you. Everything's going to be okay. I am happy. But more importantly than me being happy, well, firstly, are you happy? But secondly, what is happiness? Yes, I am happy, but we must remember that happiness is just a symptom of contentment. just as sadness is a symptom of discontentment. So we are striving not for the emotion. These emotions are very temporary, very impermanent. They come and they go. We are striving for the cause of the emotion. So in order to reduce sadness, unhappiness, one would need to find the underlying cause. And usually the cause of suffering, dukkha, is desire, wanting something we don't have, or not wanting something we do have. When I say that, I mean like a pain, you don't want it. So you have the desire not to have. This is suffering. You want some jackfruit and sweet sticky rice. You desire to have it, but you can't have it. So this is suffering. The point being is that I am, yes, thank you for your question, I am content. And this does result in happiness. We can all be happy, very temporarily, through distraction from what we are not understanding to be the cause of suffering. So if we go around thinking, just replacing one distraction with another, so, oh, I'm not happy, I'll have a pizza. Oh, that's gone, now what am I going to, I'll have some Coca-Cola. Oh, that's no good. Oh, I'll watch Netflix. Oh, that's it. You'll keep replacing, you're distracting yourself from your suffering through trying to satisfy sensual desire. And all sensual desire is insatiable. You are unable to satisfy it. Only very temporarily can you satisfy it, and then you want more. And this is kind of the root of addiction, and also the cause for the cycle of rebirth. This clinging, this wanting, this desire. Now we establish contentment through this practice of moral virtue, meditation, and the development of the mind, wisdom, sila, samadhi, and panya. And what it just means is you want for nothing. You will still need things. You'll need food. You'll need clothing, shelter, and medicine. And they're the only four requisites that the monks have to have. And shelter can be of any form, a cave, under the tree, even in the open air, if it's safe to sleep, do so. Or a hut, an empty house, a hut in the forest, a kuti. There are certain restrictions to how elaborate those accommodations can be. But this is just shelter. So to some extent this is not, this is a very subtle desire. You don't need much for shelter. The robes, clothing are sufficient. They kind of provide shelter with protection from mosquitoes, wind, cold, sun, rain. Not so much rain, but we can have some sort of tree or an umbrella to shelter under, or a cave. And food. Each and every day we're reliant on food from lay people offering it, and medicine for if we're ill. And the simplest form of medicine for monastics, even to this day I understand in some very strict Thai Forest Monasteries, is simply fermented urine. Now, I don't fancy that much myself, but the point being is we don't need much. We don't go out buying all kinds of tonics and medicines for this and that ailment, only when we're seriously ill. And then this is important. As long as these necessities, needs are met, then we are able to develop contentment, because all other things we may think we need, like the TV, like Wi-Fi, like a refrigerator that works, air conditioning, pizza, Coca-Cola, Netflix, these are all just what we want. We don't need any of these things. And how we develop the understanding, or how we reduce the wanting, that desire for those kinds of things, is by simply finding something better, finding something more enjoyable, and something that is satisfying, that does satisfy our desires. And that is through the development of the mind, but in meditation. meditation is enjoyable and is as a pleasurable activity that far surpasses all other forms of distraction in terms of sensual desires, food, entertainment, and these things. When one is established in this practice, it is always the better go-to option. And this is where and how we become so content, and therefore this contentment resulting in happiness. So a very short question, and perhaps a rather too long answer, but after all, this is what this practice is about. It is about developing happiness. It is about being happy. But we must understand that is just on the surface. We have to understand what happiness is, and that is contentment. So happiness is a symptom of contentment, and it is the resulting emotion from being content, and contentment is something that we strive to achieve through this practice of sila, samadhi and panya. So quickly moving on before I waffle further, from Ravindra Bansode. Wandami Bhante, thank you for your answer in the YouTube video. My next question is, I'm experiencing headaches after my long session meditation of Anapana. I'm aware of my breath and know taking breath fast still I think there's a bit missing from the question. I'm aware of my breath, and I think you may go on to say, and know taking breath fast, slow, deep, shallow, etc. And you're still experiencing, you're not, I think you're saying you're not trying to control the breath. Yes, which is very important that we don't control the breath. But you're still experiencing headaches. Please advise. Okay, well, headaches can be a common result of people from meditation practice, but it is not from meditation practice, it is from trying. And it is not from trying too hard, because that would also be a problem, but you should not be trying at all. We're not trying to do meditation. Anapana is short for anapanasati. It's just mindfulness of the breath. We sit and we allow our bodies to relax. How do we do that? We just settle. We settle in a relatively comfortable but upright position, much like I'm sitting now. I don't think you can see, but I always sit like this because it's comfortable. Not like an armchair, a sofa, or a big soft bed, but this position can be maintained for a very long time without moving. It's tried and tested, both for millennia and by myself in this practice. So I know when I sit like this, I will not have to get up and move for a long time. Then I have to just observe, watch the breath, in, out, long, short, deep, shallow, fast, slow. Observation, watching. This is not doing anything. And then we bring this after we've allowed the body to settle, or after we settle, it allows the body to relax. And then we can start observing, just watching the thoughts. We don't try to stop thinking, we just stop and watch thinking. By sitting, and it doesn't even have to be for a long time. We can soon, if we don't try, settle. When our body settles, it will relax. When our mind is allowed to settle, it will become calm. If you are trying to get somewhere, if you are trying to develop something, you are misinterpreting the idea of samadhi as concentration. So when you're trying to work out a difficult problem in mathematics or something like that, or you're trying to really focus on something in the distance just to see it clearly, this is really trying, and this is the same can give you a headache. Now if you notice, even if you're thinking and you're not using your vision, around your eyes will just a little bit tense up. There's tiny muscles around your eyes, which when you're thinking, when you're concentrating, when you're trying something, you just tense your eyes a little. Now this is just an indicator of what is happening in the rest of your body. And this is what causes the headache. So, how to not have headaches, or how to prevent headaches coming on. As soon as you have the faintest notion of a headache coming on, stop whatever you're doing, stand straight or sit comfortably and breathe. Just watch the breath. Bring your attention to the area around your eyes and relax your face. And with your face relaxed, just breathe in, knowing you're breathing in. And breathe out, knowing you're breathing out. Reminding yourself all of the time, relax my face. Relax my face. Relax my face. This relaxes the muscles around the eyes. And in turn, everything else in your neck, the muscles, relaxes also, the tension in your scalp. And the headache will develop no further. The headache will go away. It's just that. Next time you think you're having a headache, try it. Breathe and say, relax my face. And in meditation, you don't have to interrupt your meditation, but be aware that your eyes, your face is not relaxed. You're thinking, you're trying too hard. And this is why we get headaches in meditation and in any other circumstance. Every day, if I did not use this technique, I would have a headache, because it's very bright sunshine, and there is a tendency when you're doing things and you're avoiding insects and all the goings on to really concentrate like this. And in this heat, quite quickly you get a headache. So I stop all of the time and just relax my face like that. It becomes automatic and you don't get a headache. It's a good job there's only a few questions, because I really am going on today. So the next question from Tejas, Bis or Bise, I'm not sure. Namaste Bhante Ji. As mentioned, I returned from my Vipassana retreat on the 5th of March. It was a nice experience, thanks for your blessings. I have a question about Arupa jhanas and Arupa realms. I have read that these jhanas were discouraged by the Buddha, and he said that in Arupa realms. Can you hear this fly on the microphone? You probably can, because it's quite close. Thanks for your blessing. I have a questions about, sorry to interrupt. I have read that these jhanas were discouraged by the Buddha, and he said that in Arupa realms you can't teach the Vipassana, as they don't have a physical body, but only the mind. That's why he couldn't teach his teachers who were born there. But it isn't the mind that learns and understands. But isn't it the mind that learns and understands? Then why is the body needed? Isn't the body as if like dead without the mind? Brackets, awareness, question mark, close brackets. If possible, can you please make a video on this topic? Well, this is the video on this topic. I'm not going to make a video on this topic, because my question would be to you, why are you worried about that? The Arupa jhanas. The Arupa realms. Now, I'm not sure whether this is coming from the fact you've been on a Vipassana course, and it's often very much Abby Dharma orientated. From my understanding, I haven't been on a Vipassana course myself, so I wouldn't know. But I'm also someone who's not a fan of the Abby Dharma. There's nothing wrong with it. But the teachings of the Buddha are, as I've said many times, experiential, not intellectual. And they are also very simple. Now, I say, why are you worried about that? You know, we have to develop samadhi, kanika samadhi. This is just preliminary, for want of a better word, concentration. And then parikama samadhi, which is the next stage of samadhi, where you're able to focus more on the meditation object. Then upacharya samadhi, only then do you reduce the hindrances, the 5 hindrances of sensual desire, ill will, tiredness, restlessness and worry and doubt. Only then, in that 3rd stage of samadhi, upacharya samadhi. And then apana, not anapana, like mindfulness of the breath, but apana samadhi, which is where you're free from those 5 hindrances. And only then can you move into the first of the rupa jhanas, where you will experience there a further 3, so 4 rupa jhanas, progressively going through the loss of the distractions that one would get from this physical body, including this thinking mind. And it is there, when you move from those 4 rupa jhanas into the first of the arupa jhanas, that you've developed sufficient samadhi from the first 4 stages of samadhi to get into the first rupa jhana, and then 2, 3, 4 rupa jhanas, and then the first arupa jhana, where you will only be in a position to understand this. And once you are experiencing the arupa jhanas, all of your questions will be answered. You do not need the Abhidharma. You do not need any books. You will experience it for yourself. So why worry about how to get there? Well, not even, you're worrying about what goes on there. At least if you're going to worry about anything, worry about how to get there. And I'm assuming you're not at the arupa jhanas or experiencing the arupa jhanas now, because you would not be asking this question. So I don't mean to be harsh, but people get bogged down in all of this talk, all of this papancha, which is discursive thought, it's procrastination, it's rumination, it's just thinking, overthinking. We sit and we watch the breath. This is anapana samadhi, as the previous questioner asked. And if you get a headache, you know it's as a result of the body. And if you have aversion, because you don't want the headache, it comes from the desire not to have the headache. You're developing wisdom in this situation. You're developing the knowledge that it is the desire not to have the headache that is the second of those hindrances, not only to meditation, but to developing contentment and satisfaction in life, which is the desire not to have ill will or aversion. So I'll answer the question, not that it needs answering, but this mind and this, so you're basically saying, why is the body needed and isn't it the mind? Right, yes, there is the brain, the thinking brain or thinking mind. This learns. It can learn the Abhidharma in different languages from cover to cover by rote. It can learn all the suttas, all of the chanting. It could learn 15 different languages by rote. This doesn't develop an understanding of the Four Noble Truths or an ability to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. It doesn't develop Sila Samadhi Panya, or an understanding of anicca, dukkha, anatta. It is just acquisition of intellectual knowledge. So this is like a computer that learns. This is the brain, the thinking mind. Then there is, we call it in this tradition the citta, but you could call it also the mind or the heart mind. Now this is that which knows. So your thinking mind is thinking about what you see, hear, smell, taste and touch, and it also thinks. But your heart mind knows thinking, knows you are thinking. Your heart mind knows you are seeing, knows you are hearing, smelling, tasting, touching and thinking. It knows you are liking or disliking seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching and what you're thinking about. It is unaffected by what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching and thinking about, because it is just in that observer's point of view, observational point of view. This is the difference. There are two things you're talking about there. There is not just one mind. If you want to do anything, you could just call it brain and mind, if you need to use English words. But we call the citta, or puru, they use here, as that which knows, as being like the heart mind, and then you can say the thinking mind. I think the most straightforward way to look at it is thinking mind and heart mind. Thinking mind is your onboard computer, acquires intellectual knowledge. Thinking mind is what observes all of that and knows whether you are liking or disliking. It doesn't like or dislike, it just knows whether you are liking or disliking with your thinking mind. So I might have just said, it might have sounded like I was saying it likes and dislikes. Your heart mind does not like or dislike. It is attached, it can become attached to certain causes and conditions through what are the kilesas. These are habitual tendencies to develop temporary satisfaction. But that's a whole other story. Although it does bring me on to the last question. So if I go to the last question, which is from the second to last question, which is from Fred, that should answer your question, Tejas. It's a good question in a way, thank you. But it's also, I know you're an experienced meditator and practitioner. I know you do Vipassana courses, but I also know that you think too much. We've had that discussion before, I hope you don't mind me saying again. And I also know that on those particular courses, not through experience myself, but only hearsay, so forgive me if I'm completely wrong, they do, not in terms of the course itself in their teaching, but the people who go there, sit around or afterwards talk about a lot of this Abby Dharma stuff, and it isn't really an essential part of this practice. There's nothing wrong with it, and if you want to learn all about Abby Dharma, nothing wrong with that. But it's a side dish. It's not necessary. It's really not necessary. In fact, I think it's a distraction. So we'll just leave that at that. But then going on to Fred's question, Fred, good question. Can we really stop physical rebirth? Yes. By not letting that citta, that heart mind, get more attached in this lifetime, or by encouraging, training and developing that heart citta, that heart mind, to let go of its detachment, its attachments. By that I mean by cutting, breaking the fetters, the ties to this existence, of which there are 10. I don't know whether I can remember them now, but I'll just try. There is the view of our own self, personality view, Sakkaya Ditthi. Attachment to rites and rituals, so superstition, if you like, praying for gods and things you do to bring you success rather than doing things to bring you success. So understanding that, but understanding that in order to let go of those rituals that you're performing. Then there are the sensual desire and ill will, the aversion. So then there's the liking, so letting go of liking things and letting go of disliking things, by which you learn to be able to let go of those by understanding the nature of desire and what is causing it. And then what else is there? Oh, the attachment to this life, this body itself, thinking there's something good about it. I mean, I think as time goes on, it becomes less and less useful, older and older, more decrepit, bits of it fall off, bits of it don't work, bits of it are more painful, so it becomes less, in a way, it becomes less attractive, but people do tend to cling on to it more, keep repairing it, trying to keep it going, to stay alive. And of course, when you move towards death, if you're not fully understanding that this body is just a sack of bones, this is why we recite the 32 body parts every day in our chanting, to just see it as that, a horrible mess that this heart mind, this citta, has become attached to for this lifetime. You have to let go of this body. A lot of our contemplation in our meditation is about the body, in order that we can see it for what it really is. So becoming detached from that. And attachment to the idea of rebirth, the attachment of the idea to the idea of going to a heaven, or the aversion to the idea of going to a hell realm or a heavenly realm, to different realms at all. So where you're talking about realms there earlier, don't worry about the realms. By worrying about the realms, thinking about the realms, sorry, I'm flitting from one questioner to another here, because the questions always seem to be a bit related. But where you're thinking about realms, you're forming these attachments. So what we do, the simple practice, and this is the answer to many of the questions, is to know and let go. When we know and we let go, we are cutting those ties. Now I think I got to 10 if you look at all the positive and negatives, I don't know, but there are those actual things that tie us to rebirth. If we're fortunate enough, we're reborn in this human realm. But your question is, can we really stop this physical rebirth? Yes, we want to stop any rebirth, not just physical rebirth. We want to not be reborn in the heavenly realms, because this usually requires coming back to the human realms in order to become free from suffering or free from rebirth entirely, because the heavenly realms are too nice. One just becomes more attached. The human realms are perfect for the abandonment of rebirth, the ability to not be reborn, because there is a fair share of both pleasure and pain, joy and suffering. Therefore, you know and can appreciate the nature of existence more easily, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this is the ideal place to develop that understanding. Not intellectual knowledge, just understanding, just knowing that everything's impermanent, everything's unsatisfactory, and everything is out of your control. And this body, this personality, this what you call you, is only a result of circumstances and conditions, causes and conditions that it happens to be situated in at the moment. And this can change, and you become a different kind of you, as I've talked about in other videos previously. But when you know this, you can let go of this. When you see how fickle, how shallow what you think you are is, you can very easily let go of that. Now, for instance, when you're the bank manager and you're made redundant and you're then the person claiming benefits, you don't go around thinking, oh, I'm the bank manager anymore. You know you're that person that's now claiming benefits. Now, there's nothing wrong with either of those things. In my book, they're the same. Just a person, a heart mind in a physical body. There's nothing better or worse than either person. King or beggar on the streets. I'm a beggar on the streets. I've chosen to live that life. I've chosen to be that way. An alms mendicant. I rely on other people to put food in my bowl. You can't see it, but my phone's perched on my bowl there now. So this is by choice. I used to be an investment banker, and that was by choice. But what knew I was doing that and what knows I'm doing this hasn't changed. And I am developing the understanding, the trying to develop this wisdom to know that, and therefore be able to let go of even the identity of being an alms mendicant, a beggar whom is, to all intents and purposes, homeless, as I have let go of my former existence. And all people have changed, even if they've been in the same job all their lives. Once they were at school, once they were at college, once they were at university, once they had a job. Once they were married, then they weren't, then they were married, then they were widowed. It goes on. We can be free from physical rebirth by knowing and letting go, to know and let go. But I think you probably mean be free from birth, because we're not aspiring to go to the heavenly realms. This is not like the Abrahamic faiths, the Christian faith, for instance, whereby you have an eternity in heaven. You have a very long time in the heavenly realms in the understanding of Buddhism, but that isn't the aim. You're destined from there to come back down to the human realms, animal realms, even hell realms again after that. You are never free from rebirth until you have let go of wanting to be reborn. And that's all it is. If you don't want rebirth, you just have to stop wanting it. You have to just see the unattractiveness of it. And this is true freedom. This is liberation, and it can be experienced in this lifetime. So I think I don't want to miss a question again, so thank you for your question, Fred. It was a good question. The answer is, can we really stop physical rebirth? The answer is yes. I should have just said that, shouldn't I? Yes. Another question from Fred in a minute, but so as I don't forget, Nick Osmond's question. Hello, Phra Dan. I am new to meditation, and your vlogs about best practice are very helpful. Right, okay, thank you. My question to you is that during my meditation in a seated on the floor position and during a practice of 30 to 40 minutes, I fall asleep, or I think I do. Is this something normal, or am I doing something wrong? Many thanks in advance. Nick, UK. Yes, well, no, you're not really doing anything wrong, and yes, it is normal if there is anything normal, especially to people new to meditation. Of course, don't think of it negatively. You're wanting your body, you're wanting your mind to relax. And what happens when our body relaxes and our mind relaxes, like when we go to bed in the evening, to do just that, we go to sleep. So it's used to doing that. So the third of the 5 hindrances, whenever we sit to meditate, there are 5 hindrances. The first is sensual desire, wanting things. The second is ill will, not wanting things. The third is, they call it sloth and torpor, so tiredness. And the fourth is restlessness and worry, and the fifth, doubt. This third is tiredness, and it is a very common hindrance both in meditation and also in our everyday lives when we're trying to do things. Now, the first way to ensure that this isn't a problem is to get enough sleep. Seems like an obvious answer, but if you don't get enough sleep and you sit and try to meditate, the body and the mind will use that opportunity to get some. It just makes sense, doesn't it? So try and get enough sleep. You will, after time in this practice, if you're practicing Buddhist meditation, so that's being accompanied by sila, so moral virtue, and also the development of the mind, panya. Meditation is samadhi in the middle, sila, samadhi, panya. Then you will develop more what they call virya, energy, and need less sleep. but certainly in the early days you'll need as much sleep, especially if you work, as you've always needed. Although you can slightly reduce it. And a good way to reduce sleep is to, say, have some meditation time at the beginning of the day. If you set your alarm normally at 6 a.m. in the morning, then set it for 5:30, just get up and meditate for half an hour before your second alarm goes off to stop the meditation, or even an hour. You can then practice some extra meditation and also reduce the amount you sleep without making yourself tired. And it's also a good time to find a point of the day when you have some wakefulness. Once you get out of bed, sit on the floor. Don't do anything else. It wakes you up. Rather than at the end of the day when you're worn out, both bodily and in the mind. So have enough sleep. Now the next thing is, when you find yourself dozing off, drowsing like this, then sit upright. Make sure you're sitting upright. The base of your back, I don't know what they call this, in the middle of your back, push it in so it's pushing your tummy out. So it looks like you've got a concave sinking in middle of your back, but a sticky out belly at the front. This produces some energy up the spine, and it also straightens your body. You need to be sitting erect and straight. This keeps you alert, and there's less tendency to fall asleep. If you're sitting like this, hanging your head, you will go to sleep. So many meditators I just see sitting there like that, asleep. Well, that's not meditating, that's sitting there asleep. Your ears should be in line with your shoulders, shoulders in line with your elbows, hands on your lap, and everything in line with your hips, down to sitting on the floor or on a seat of a chair, in which case your knees and heels should be in line, flat on the floor, but not leaning back, sideways or forwards, sitting upright. I mean, this position alone, the reason for it is to keep you awake. If you're still dozing, you also said you're not sure you've been to sleep. No, you're not sure. Sometimes you could think it's something else. But very often, it is, especially when we first start meditating, that we have dozed off, gone to sleep a little. And you do know because you'll tend to nod like this and wake up again. And with a start, you know. So if just sitting erect, so get enough sleep, sit in a good straight position, take some deep breaths if you're still feeling tired. Just a few deep breaths through your nose, big full lungfuls of air, and breathe out like this, just a few. That invigorates you also and wakes you up a little bit. Now if that all fails, those three things fail or not working, then open your eyes just for a while and look upwards. Don't look down or straight ahead, look upwards and look towards some light. And this is interrupting your meditation, but it's going to wake you up. And then close your eyes, take some breaths and close your eyes again. I should have said don't meditate just after a meal, a heavy meal, at least an hour or so after a meal. If you're digesting, you will feel tired. So these are the main ways to stay awake. If you're meditating for 30 to 40 minutes, it should be possible to stay awake for that time, unless you are already too tired, in which case the first one, get enough sleep in the first place. Now if all that fails, you can get up and practice some walking meditation, just up and down. And I think there's a video on here about walking meditation. I ought to do another one soon. Now I have a nice environment with lots of nice walking meditation paths. I should do that. But just walk from one point to another, not looking around, just with the mindfulness of stepping right, stepping left, stepping right, stepping left, or butto, butto, butto. And when you get to the end of that walking path, stop, slowly turn around, ask yourself, was I just watching the feet, the steps, or was I thinking? And then make the determination to not be thinking, just to watch the feet and the steps on your return journey. So get up and do some walking meditation, and then if you're meditating for just 40 minutes, then there's probably not enough time. But if you're maybe meditating for longer, you could meditate for 40 minutes, get up and walk for 20, meditate for 40, get up and walk for 20. Or you could do 10 and half an hour, or 10 and 15, whatever's more comfortable. So, I hope that answers, Nick. Yes, I hope your practice goes well. Keep at it. You say you're new to meditation, so it's a marvellous thing to experience. I don't know whether you're new to meditation itself or Buddhist meditation. I really only talk about Buddhist meditation, but meditation is where I came to Buddhism. I started with meditation, and then that led me to Buddhism. So it is a part of Buddhism. And if you take just that part alone, that's fine, but it'll only go so far. But that so far is already leaps and bounds ahead of anything else anyone can do. Like I said earlier on in the video, it is by far the greatest source of pleasure when you establish a good practice in meditation, and you are developing a wonderful calmness and joy and happiness from that practice alone, without having to do anything else, go anywhere, have anything special, any environments, or it's just free for the taking and the enjoyment of all. So then finally, last question, a very short one. This is from Fred. What are you in? I'm in, I won't say where you are, and I won't say where I am, but I've already replied to you, Fred. Just email me and I'll tell you. I always say that, I don't say where I am on here. So that's all of the questions for today. I hope I didn't waffle too much, and I hope the answers I gave were useful. If not, don't worry about them. Don't think about them. Just take from this what is useful and leave what isn't. I wish you all the best with your practice, and may it lead you happily on the path towards Nibbana.